thought this was a romance. It was not. Well, long. It's such a huge series. It's so popular on like TikTok. A deeper voice. Does that make sense? I don't know how to describe it any better. But I am always excited to talk about books. Okay, so my camera battery is already blinking at me, which is crazy because I just sat down. We're gonna see how far we can take this. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah. Hello everyone and welcome to our October-November bi-monthly wrap-up. 8 books to talk about. We are nice and comfortable in our little reading area. I want to put something here. You can't see this, but there's like a little frame here, and then I want to put something here. This is my Harry Potter puzzle that if you look back at a few other reading vlogs I have been working on, my boyfriend and I have been working on for literally ever. So I'm happy that we finally finished it and got to hang it up. These past 2 months have absolutely flown by. I don't know how we are already in December. That's insane to me. October was such a busy month for me. Like I was doing something like big every weekend. Like I was in a wedding one weekend, I went to the Eras concert one weekend, and then I went to Pennsylvania another weekend. Like I did like big things in October. So I feel like I wasn't able to read as much, but then in November I kind of was just catching my breath from all the big things in October. So I was able to read a little bit more. We had 8 books, 6 books in a series, not all the same series, but in a series, 4 YA dystopian books, 1 I think it's considered fantasy book, and 3 romance books. So those are our stats for our October and November. We are in December. We are in Bookmas season, or I am filming and editing so much. So it's a busy time, but I am always excited to talk about books. I can't believe that we have 1 month until 2025. Actually, less than 1 month until 2025. Do you know how crazy that is to me? Like that's, trying to like process that in my brain is crazy to me. Like how? We are going to start by talking about a series that I completed these past 2 months, and that is the Divergent series. So I read Divergent in September, and then I read Insurgent, Allegiance, and the novella 4 in October. This is a YA dystopian series. I kind of explained about it in my other wrap-up, but I always like reread or read a YA dystopian series in the fall time. I don't know why. Fall time relates to comfort, which relates to the books that I read when I was in high school, but it all correlates for me. So I always want to read a YA dystopian book in the fall. It was Divergent this year. So this is the 2nd book, the 3rd book, and the novella. Insurgent, I think was my favorite of the series. I gave this one a 3.75. Allegiant was probably my least favorite of the series. I gave this a 2.5 stars. And then 4 is a bunch of novellas from 4's perspective. I think overall I'm gonna give it a 3 stars. It was interesting because me, my boyfriend, and I rewatched all of the movies after I reread the books. The 2nd movie and the 3rd movie strayed so far away from these books. I think what lowered this rating to be like, not lowered, but like it's a 3.75 instead of a 4 star, is I liked the movie storyline better. I like the idea of like the box, how Tris is like 100% divergent and she's like the key to this message that the outside world has. This book still does have some elements to it, but like the main element that was in the movie, the box, was not in this book at all, and I think that kind of confused me because I remembered the box being such a big part of the 2nd book. So when I read this and it wasn't really that at all, it did confuse me a little bit. I think overall it was an easier read. I think I said this in Divergent, where she has like a very odd way of speaking in this book, because I think they're trying to have that YA dystopian type vernacular to it. The way she says something like, this is not a negotiation, it is a warning. I step forward to receive the message. Like, it just sounds a little bit robotic to me. I feel like that threw me off sometimes, which is why I listen to this on audiobook majority, just because it's easier for me to understand the story and appreciate the story when it's on audiobook. Yeah, I think this was good. So sorry, our battery did end up dying on us and my microphone stand broke. So we're just kind of struggling a little bit in this video, but that's fine. We're just gonna keep going. In Insurgent, I did like this book. I think that it was just, I like the movie storyline better, and it was interesting to see how she had to juggle her like abnegation versus dauntless versus divergent mind, and just how she was realizing the flaws in her society. And it did set the book up perfectly for the third book, which was Allegiant. This was the book that I liked the least in the series. I think it was just because I didn't like how it ended. I have a video where I read this book and I say most of what I'm saying, but I didn't like how it ended. I feel like there's so many other ways that they could have had a meaning behind the story without doing what they did to this certain character. But for me, I didn't like it. I was like, there wasn't a reason for you to do that. There were so many other ways to go about it. That being said, I did like the storyline in the beginning where they are in the outside world now, and she's sort of struggling with adjusting her mindset that she's known for her entire life to what she now knows. There becomes some tension between her and For's relationship. I think that's another reason why I didn't really love this book, because For is kind of like, he just doesn't feel like the For that we got to know throughout the first two books, that like strong male main character where it's like he is always there for Tris and he's always going to be a person for Tris to rely on. He was sort of just kind of whiny in this book. I didn't particularly... Oh my gosh, my cat's in a litter box. I didn't particularly like how they portrayed For in this book. I didn't like the decisions that he made, and I feel like that affected its rating as well. But I did, because I'm a perfectionist, end up reading For, which is a series of I think 4 or 5 novellas told from For's perspective. For is the main character in the whole Divergent series. A bunch of different scenes from his perspective. It tells about, like, one is his initiation, one is when he chooses to be dauntless, one is when he meets Tris, one is when he realizes something that his government is corrupt, basically. And I did read that the author of this, Veronica Roth, did plan on having For as the main character in like the main series. So I think this is like her compilation of her writings before she decided to have Tris as the main character. So this is like her beginning writings of how she thought the story would play out. Although that we had like the same sort of situation with Tris where she started as abnegation and then she went to dauntless. He just handled it differently and she handled it differently. And they had a lot of different like family histories that affected their decisions, I feel like, more. But it was interesting to see how he sort of knew all along about what was sort of happening with the government. Not all along, but he like had his suspicions about what was happening with the government that Tris then had not known anything about. Okay, so that's the whole YA dystopian reread that I did this fall. After reading the YA dystopian fantasy type world, I wanted to do a nice little romance, so I chose Honey. And I thought this was a romance. It was not. Well, it was kind of a romance, but I feel like it was more of like a woman's fiction book. It is by Isabel Banta, and I gave it a 3.25. The story was sort of like anticlimactic at the end. It was sort of like trying to be Daisy Jones and the Six, but wasn't Daisy Jones and the Six, you know? Like, that's the kind of vibe that I got from it. Sort of like a retrospective on the 90s pop girls, like Britney Spears. These pop girls that followed Britney Spears, how they sort of took over the media and everything like that, and they had like, you know, excerpts of like magazines like J14 in this book, and I feel like that was cool, where it like added more to the story. It's from 1990 to I think 2004 is the last chapter. The story of Amber's rise to fame, being sort of like the Britney Spears character, where people were used to like the clean-cut image of pop girls. So like when Britney Spears came out and did more like risque stuff, they got some backlash from the media. I feel like that's what Isabella Banta was trying to do with her main character, because she is known as sort of like the pop girl who always has a scandal, and her best friend is like the pop girl that's like America's sweetheart type thing. That was an interesting commentary on how people viewed like pop girls. Not like promiscuity, because she wasn't really promiscuous at all, but just like not what they were used to. More bold of a pop girl than they were used to in the 90s. And I think that that part was interesting. Again, I liked how like they included little timepieces of like the J14 articles. I really liked the quotes in here. There were some really good quotes in here about like life and love and things like that. I feel like that is why this book has a 3.25, because it's overall like a 3-star book, like a very mid book to me. I was interesting, entertaining while I was reading it, but it wasn't like anything amazing. The 0.25 was because I really liked the quotes. I look down at them collected by my little sage in the mall and think, we are the same. We are all mortified to be alive. We are still adjusting worlds, tectonic plates shaking in place, sometimes submerging, pushing up, 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 only to crumble on the surface. Just like little interesting women's fiction type quotes like that, which I liked in this book. The next book I read is probably one of my favorite books that I read these past 2 months. It is Butcher and Blackbird by Bryn Weaver. This I gave a 4.25, and if you do read this book, then you should listen to the audiobook because I think the audiobook is very interesting. It's always hard for me to explain how this audiobook is interesting because it doesn't make much, like, I don't know how to explain it well, but basically it's told in dual point of view. It's a romance. It's more like a rom-com because they're both serial killers. A lot of their bonding is them killing other serial killers. So it's like supposed to be funny, but it's just like gross things are happening while they're having these like flirty moments, and that is the funny part of it, I think. I think it was a really fun twist on the like almost fully tapped romance genre lately. It kept my attention more than just a normal romance book. What I was saying about the audiobook was it is told in dual point of view. They have two voice actors for both perspectives. Like there's a female voice actor for Sloane's point of view, and then there's a male voice actor for Rowan's point of view. In the audiobook they read their chapters, but if there's dialogue, like if there's a Rowan dialogue in a Sloane chapter, then the male main character actually says it. You know what I mean? So it's like instead of, like if it was a female POV chapter, the female voice actor would take on like a deeper voice when the male main character was speaking. The male main character actually spoke during those moments. So there was like the male voice actor's voice in the female POV chapters. Does that make sense? I don't know how to describe it any better. It's easier if you just listen to the book. If you listen to the audiobook, you'll understand what I mean. It's on Spotify Premium for free. I mean, like if you have premium, it is on Spotify, so just listen to a chapter and you'll get what I mean. But anyway, I really liked this book. Just, it had me laughing out loud, it had me giggling. I thought that the twist was really fun at the end, like the big reveal, so to speak, of like the conflict at the end. I think that that was fun and I wasn't really expecting it at all. I like when books can do that to me because a lot of romance books can't really surprise me anymore. This one did. The second book's already out, Leather and Lark, and the third book is coming out. So I will definitely be continuing this series because I like the way that Bryn Weaver writes too. It's just funny and entertaining. So yeah, highly recommend Butcher and Blackbird. Then I actually was looking on like the graphic audio, because if you don't know graphic audio, it's basically an audiobook where it's like a movie in your head. Like there's a full cast of characters, there's sound effects, music, and everything like that, and it's just literally like you're watching a movie in your head, and I think that's so fun and entertaining. So I wanted to listen to one of those, and I've been hearing about this series for so long. It's such a huge series. It's so popular on like TikTok, but I just haven't picked it up because the first book is basically a bully romance, and I don't love bully romances. I decided like the graphic audio version, it would be easier for me to like see if I like the story, and then if I want to continue it. That is The Zodiac Academy by Caroline Peckham and Suzanne Valenti. This is the first book in the Zodiac Academy series. It's called The Awakening. It is told in dual point of view of two sisters. It's the story of two sisters who don't realize that they're basically heirs to the throne of this like magical place, and then they get taken to the school to learn about their powers, and they can control all four elements. Most people in this like magic school only have one element they can control, and they have like house air, house fire, house earth, house water. But these girls have all the elements. There's two sort of romances going on. One is a bully romance and one is an age gap romance. I think those are going to be the romances throughout the rest of the books. I just am making that assumption. I don't know for sure, but I think they will be. I don't like bully romances. And of course, you know, when they go to the school, they get backlash because the heirs, which are like this group of like 4 or 5 guys who are all of course super attractive, and their parents were like one under the king and queen. Or these two girls, they were basically like lost princesses before they came back. These 5 guys, or 4 guys I think, the heirs, were supposed to take over the throne. Darcy and Tori show up and they get pushed back because they think that they're trying to steal the throne from them, even though it is rightfully theirs. Anyway, Darcy and Tori are basically like, look, we don't want your throne. Like, we just are trying to get enough money to like take care of ourselves in the real world. We don't want anything to do with your world. That's what they're learning about their powers for, to get their inheritance, and they're like, you can rule, I don't care. At least in the first book, that's how they are. But you know, the guys don't believe her, and they are very mean to them. Like, there are some things in here that I was like, oh my god, these authors are bold for putting those things in here and then turning it into a romance. I don't know how I'm ever gonna like these guys, the things that they did. Like, I didn't forget the things that you did, even though you were trying to be sweet, Mr. Male main characters. I feel like I am gonna continue the series. I have the next graphic audio book 2, waiting on my Audible. So I do like the story, I like the world, but I just don't know about our male main characters yet. Finally, Siege and Storm. This is the second book in the Shadow and Bone trilogy. I have been trying to get through this trilogy for so long. This is only the second book. This took me so long to get through. I ended up having to listen to it on audiobook to finish it up because the main character was just being so annoying to me. Like, the decisions that she was making, the thoughts she was having that I was reading were just so uninteresting but also annoying to me at the same time that I almost DNF'd this book like 5 times. But I have like a thing where I can't DNF books. I don't know what's wrong with me in my brain, like I can't DNF them. So I kept reading like 1 chapter at a time every other week or something like that. Like, it was taking forever to get through this book because if you don't like the decisions that the main character is making or the thoughts they're having and you're constantly in their point of view, it gets hard. It gets hard to read. She has to turn it around because I am not gonna like the 3rd book if they keep going down this path they're going down. I just think that there are so many other interesting things they could do besides making these like 3 animals their main storyline, and I don't like what they're planning to do with the 3 animals. Say some without saying too much. Gave it a 2.5. It's a YA dystopian book. It has a Netflix series out, and the whole reason I want to read this trilogy is because I want to watch the Netflix series, but it's taken me so long to get there. So hopefully before 2025 ends, I will read the last book, Ruin and Rising. I just hear that the show is so much better, and maybe they change it up, you know, like Divergent changed up their whole storyline in the 2nd book. Maybe the show changes up the storyline, and it's because like everyone loves it. So I don't know. I am very curious what they're going to do with the next book. The last book that I read, One Star Romance by Laura Hankin. I gave this a 3.5 and I'm reading from my Goodreads review. So it's still a point of view. And I wrote that I liked the romance was kind of on the back burner and it was more about their lives, like the 2 main characters' lives. But they, you know, of course came together in the end because it is marketed as a romance. It was a little bit like light for my tastes as a romance. I didn't really end up caring about the romance a super lot. I found their actual stories of their life more interesting, but it was definitely a slow burn because this is told over like a decade, I think, like told over 10 years or like a very long time. There's like time jumps every 2.5 years, like there's a time jump, there's like 5 of them. I just feel like throughout the years, because she was learning like how to be a good friend throughout the years, like she got annoying at sometimes before she learned those lessons, and I feel like that was a little bit hard for me. Natalie got annoying. These are our 2 main characters, Natalie and what's his name? Rob. Their best friends are marrying each other and they can't stand each other. So it starts out with them being the best man and the maid of honor in their best friend's wedding. He ends up giving her book a 1-star review, like her first debut novel, so she immediately doesn't like him and is like, what don't you like about it? And he won't really tell her, or she doesn't like his answer, basically. They have that rivalry at the start and they just keep coming together after, and it's just them meeting over these years and seeing each other grow. Then eventually, you know, they get together, and it is definitely a slow burn. I think it was entertaining for what it was. It wasn't anything amazing, but I think for what it was entertaining. It was an okay book. Like, I feel like it's not like a must read, but I liked it for what it was. Those are all the books that we read these past 2 months in October, November. All our readings. I think my favorite one was definitely Butcher and Blackbird. My least favorite one has to be like Siege and Storm, just because it took me forever to get through. But I am excited for Bookmas to be reading a lot more Christmassy books now. I think the first video is going to go up on the 12th, and it's going to be 12 days of videos all the way up until Christmas Eve. We're going to try this year. We tried last year and I only got to like 8 days. We're going to really try to get to 12 days. I think my planning is better this year, so we'll see. Overall, not a bad couple reading months. We didn't have any like super standouts, but we had some pretty good books. That is going to be it from me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.